Welcome to Native Flow English. I am so happy you are here. If this is your first time visiting our channel, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. This way, you will not miss our new lessons, and you will be part of our learning community. Today, we have a very special topic that many young people in America, in Europe, in Canada, in Australia, and around the world think about almost every single day. The question is, should I get married or should I stay single? What is the best choice for my life? But before we go deeper, let me ask you a question right now. Do you believe that being married will make your life happier? Or do you think that staying single gives you more freedom? Please pause for a moment and tell me your answer in the comments below. Your opinion is very important, and I would love to read your thoughts. Now, let us begin our listening practice. In today's story, we will meet a young woman named Emily. Emily is 27 years old. She lives in New York City, and she is working as a graphic designer. She enjoys her life, but she is also thinking about her future. Many of her friends are getting married. Some of them already have children, and Emily feels a little pressure from her family and from society. Her parents sometimes ask her, "When are you going to get married?" But Emily is not sure. She is asking herself every day, should I choose marriage or should I stay single? This story about Emily is not only her story, it is the story of many young people in modern society, people in America, people in Europe, and young adults all around the world are asking the same question. And today, we will explore this question together in simple English. This will help you practice listening, learn new vocabulary, and also think about real-life choices. Let us imagine a normal day in Emily's life. She wakes up at 7 in the morning. She makes a cup of coffee, and she looks at her phone. On social media, she sees pictures of her friends. One couple is smiling on their honeymoon. Another couple is celebrating their first wedding anniversary. A different friend just posted a picture of their baby. Emily looks at these pictures and feels both happy and confused. She is happy because her friends are enjoying their lives, but she feels confused because she does not know if marriage is the right path for her. This moment creates a real-life question. What does marriage give us? And what does single life give us? Marriage can bring love, support, and partnership. When you are married, you have someone to share your dreams with, someone to help you in difficult times, and someone to celebrate with you when life is good. But marriage also brings responsibilities. You must care about another person. You must make decisions together. Sometimes, you must give up some personal freedom. On the other hand, single life gives independence. When you are single, you can choose your own path without asking another person. You can travel, study, or change your job easily. You can spend more time with your friends or focus on personal growth. But single life can also feel lonely. Sometimes, when you are sick or tired, you may wish you had a partner to support you. So, what should Emily do? What should young people today do? Before we answer, let us practice listening more with Emily's story. One Saturday afternoon, Emily meets her friend Sarah at a coffee shop. Sarah recently got married, and she is very excited to share her experience. Sarah says, "Emily, marriage is wonderful. I feel safe. I feel loved. And I feel like I am building a future together with my husband." Emily listens carefully, and she asks, "Do you ever feel like you lost your freedom?" Sarah smiles and says, "Sometimes. Yes, I cannot always do what I want, but the love and partnership are worth it for me. Later that day, Emily goes to a small party at her friend David's apartment. David is 30 years old and he is single. He is happy with his life. He travels often. He works as a photographer and he enjoys his freedom. At the party, David tells Emily, "I love being single. I can go where I want, when I want. I can focus on my career and I do not feel pressure to compromise. Maybe one day I will marry. But right now, single life is perfect for me." Now, Emily has heard two different points of view. Sarah says marriage brings love and stability. David says single life brings freedom and adventure. And Emily is still thinking, which one is right for me? This is the question we are exploring together in this video. And now, I want to ask you again, if you were in Emily's place, what would you choose? Would you prefer the comfort of marriage or the independence of single life? Please share your opinion in the comments below. Let us stop for a moment and think about the deeper reasons behind this choice. Why do many young people today feel confused about marriage? In the past, the answer was simple. In many cultures, you were expected to marry young, have children, and build a family. That was the normal path. But in today's world, things are changing. In America and in Europe, people often wait until they are older to marry. Some people choose not to marry at all. Why? Because life today is different. People want to build careers, travel, or focus on personal goals. People want independence before they share their life with someone else. This social change creates both opportunities and challenges. On one hand, you have more freedom to choose your life path. On the other hand, you may feel pressure, loneliness, or fear of making the wrong decision. And this is exactly what Emily is feeling right now. So, in this story, we will continue to follow Emily as she thinks, listens, and learns. We will explore the challenges of marriage, the joys of independence, and the reality of modern life. And as you listen, you will also practice English in a natural way, with simple words, short sentences, and real-life topics. Before we move forward, let me ask you one more question to think about. Do you think happiness comes from love and family, or does it come from personal freedom and success? There is no simple answer, but your opinion is valuable. Please share it in the comments. Thank you for staying with me until this point. In the next part of this story, we will continue to explore Emily's life and the lessons she learns about love, freedom, and the meaning of happiness. So make sure you stay tuned, subscribe to Native Flow English, and get ready for part 2. As Emily walked home from David's party that evening, the city lights seemed brighter than usual. She thought about Sarah's smile, the way Sarah described the warmth of being married. She also remembered David's confidence, his freedom, and his sense of adventure. Both choices seemed attractive, but also frightening in different ways. The cool night air made Emily slow down her steps. She looked at couples holding hands on the sidewalk. Some were laughing, some were quiet, but all of them seemed connected. Then she noticed a young woman walking alone, with headphones on, moving happily to the rhythm of her music. Emily asked herself, why does one choice look peaceful one moment, but complicated the next? This question stayed in her mind until she reached her apartment. She sat down, poured herself a glass of water, and opened her journal. Writing always helped Emily understand her feelings. On one page, She wrote, reasons for marriage. On the other page, she wrote, reasons for staying single. Under reasons for marriage, she listed love and companionship, support during difficult times, building a family, stability. Under reasons for staying single, she wrote freedom to travel, independence in decisions, more time for career and hobbies, less conflict. As she looked at the lists, she realized something important. Both sides had value, but both sides also had hidden challenges. For example, marriage could bring love, but it could also bring arguments. Staying single could bring freedom, but it could also bring loneliness. She closed the notebook and whispered, no path is perfect. Maybe the real question is, which challenges am I ready to accept? The next morning, Emily decided to call her mother. Her mother had been married for over 30 years, and Emily wanted to hear her perspective. On the phone, she asked, Mom, do you think marriage makes life easier or harder? Her mother laughed gently and said, marriage is not easy, Emily. It takes patience, compromise, and forgiveness. But it also brings joy when you share your life with someone you truly love. For me, the hard days were worth it. Emily listened carefully, but she also thought about how different her life was from her mother's. Her mother got married at 24, started a family right away, and dedicated many years to raising children. Emily admired her mother's strength, but she also wondered if she wanted the same path. Later that week, Emily met her colleague Michael for lunch. Michael was divorced. He had been married for 7 years, and now he was single again. Emily was curious, so she asked, Michael, what did you learn from marriage? Michael paused before answering. I learned that love alone is not enough. You need communication, respect, and shared goals. Without those, marriage can feel like a prison, but I also learned that being single is not automatically easier. Sometimes I miss having a partner. Sometimes I feel lonely. Both sides have difficulties. Emily, you just have to decide which difficulties you prefer. Emily was struck by Michael's honesty. It made her realize that the choice was not between perfect marriage and perfect single life. The choice was between two imperfect but meaningful ways of living. That night, Emily went for a walk in Central Park. She saw families having picnics, couples jogging together, and groups of friends laughing on the grass. She thought about Sarah, David, her mother, and Michael. Everyone had a different experience. Everyone had a different truth. Maybe there was no universal answer. Maybe the best choice depended on what each person valued most. At this point, Emily began to ask herself deeper questions. She wondered, do I want stability more than freedom? Do I want partnership more than independence? Do I want to build a family? Or do I want to focus on personal growth? These questions are not only Emily's questions. They are the questions many young people in America, Canada, Europe, and Australia are asking today. The modern world offers so many opportunities. You can study, travel, start a business, or move to another city. At the same time, society still carries the traditional expectation of marriage and family. This creates tension. People feel caught between tradition and personal dreams. For example, in the United States, many young professionals delay marriage because they want to finish their education, build financial stability, and explore their careers. In Europe, Many young adults choose to live together with partners without marriage because they value flexibility. In Australia, more people are focusing on travel and personal experiences before thinking about long-term commitment. These social changes reflect the growing idea that happiness can be found in many forms, not only in marriage. Emily thought about all of this as she sat on a bench in the park. She looked up at the sky and asked herself quietly, "What do I really want?" At that moment, a child ran past her, laughing and chasing a ball. Behind him, a young couple held hands, smiling as they watched their son. The scene was sweet, and it touched Emily's heart. She could imagine herself as a mother one day. She could imagine the joy of raising a child with someone she loved. But then she imagined another picture. Herself on an airplane, flying to Paris alone, with no one to wait for her, no one to compromise with. That picture was exciting too. Two futures appeared in her mind. Both futures were beautiful. Both were possible. But she could not choose both at the same time. And this is the difficult truth for so many people today. Life is full of opportunities, but every opportunity requires a sacrifice. If you choose marriage, you may sacrifice some independence. If you choose single life, you may sacrifice companionship. There is no perfect answer. Emily felt a little overwhelmed. She whispered to herself, maybe the real lesson is not about choosing the perfect life. Maybe the lesson is about accepting that every life has both happiness and struggle. This thought gave her some peace. For the first time in days, she felt less pressure. She realized she did not need to make the decision immediately. She still had time to learn, to grow, and to understand herself better. Before leaving the park, she wrote one more line in her journal. The best choice is not the one that makes me look successful to others. The best choice is the one that feels true to my own heart. Now, let me ask you, if you were sitting on that bench with Emily, what advice would you give her? Would you tell her to marry soon or to enjoy her single life longer? Please share your advice in the comments. Emily's journey is far from over. In the next part, we will see how she tests her ideas in real life. She will go on a date, she will experience moments of independence, and she will face new challenges that bring her closer to her answer. The following weekend, Emily received a message that made her heart beat faster. It was from Daniel, a man she had met at a friend's birthday party a few months earlier. He wrote, "Hi, Emily. Would you like to have dinner with me this Friday?" Emily stared at the message for a long time. She remembered Daniel's warm smile and kind voice. He seemed thoughtful, serious, and a little shy. Part of her was excited. Maybe this was the beginning of something real. Something deep. But another part of her hesitated. If she said yes, was she opening the door to marriage and commitment? If she said no, would she miss a chance for love? Finally, she replied, "Yes, Friday works. Looking forward to it." When Friday arrived, Emily carefully chose a dress, sprayed a little perfume, and looked in the mirror. She felt nervous but hopeful. At the restaurant, Daniel was already waiting at the table. He stood up, smiled, and said, "You look beautiful tonight." The evening started gently, with small talk about work, family, and hobbies. But soon, Daniel leaned closer and asked, "Emily, do you think about marriage? Do you want a family one day?" The directness of his question surprised her. For a moment, she was silent. Then she laughed nervously and said, "That's a big question for a first dinner." isn't it? Daniel smiled politely. I know it's early, but I'm not interested in wasting time. I want to build something serious. I don't want to spend years in uncertainty. His words were sincere, but they also pressed against Emily's heart like a weight. Part of her admired his honesty. Another part of her felt trapped. She asked herself, am I ready for someone this serious? That night, after returning home, Emily couldn't sleep. She replayed the conversation again and again. His voice echoed. I want something serious. She asked herself, is this the kind of man I should choose? Or is this the kind of man who will make me lose myself too soon? The next day, Emily decided to distract her mind. She joined a group of colleagues for a weekend hiking trip outside the city. The trail was long. The air was fresh, and the trees whispered like old friends. As they climbed higher, one of her colleagues, Jessica, shared her own story. Jessica said, I was engaged 2 years ago, but I broke it off. Everyone thought I was crazy, but I realized I wanted freedom more than security. Now, I travel every chance I get. I feel alive. Emily listened with fascination. Jessica's words sounded bold, powerful, almost rebellious. At the same time, Emily wondered if Jessica ever felt regret. She asked, don't you ever feel lonely? Jessica looked at the mountains in the distance and replied, sometimes, but I prefer temporary loneliness over permanent compromise. That sentence hit Emily hard. Temporary loneliness, permanent compromise. The words kept ringing in her mind. Later on the hike, a sudden storm came. The rain poured down. Lightning cut the sky, and everyone hurried to find shelter. In the chaos, Emily slipped on a wet rock and twisted her ankle. Pain shot through her leg, and she sat down on the muddy ground. For a moment, she felt helpless and alone, but then one of her colleagues rushed to help. It was Mark, a quiet man from her office who usually didn't speak much. He offered his hand and said firmly, don't worry, I've got you. He supported her as they moved slowly down the trail. In that moment, Emily felt a wave of gratitude. The storm was frightening. The pain was real, but Mark's presence gave her comfort. It made her realize something powerful. Life is unpredictable, and in those moments of weakness, having someone by your side feels like a gift. That night, lying in bed with her ankle wrapped, Emily thought about the storm. She thought about Daniel's seriousness, Jessica's freedom, and Mark's steady kindness. 3 different voices, 3 different lessons, but which one spoke the loudest to her own heart? Days passed, and Emily tried to continue her normal routine. But the conflict inside her only grew stronger. At work, she found herself daydreaming. On the subway, she watched strangers, couples holding hands, single people reading books, parents with children. She imagined herself in each role, but she could not decide which picture felt most true. One evening, she sat by the window with a cup of tea. She whispered to herself, maybe this is not just about marriage or single life. Maybe this is about courage, the courage to choose and the courage to accept the consequences. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a new message from Daniel. I had a great time with you. Can I see you again this week? Her heart raced. She wanted to say yes, but fear held her hand back. She imagined a future with Daniel, a home, children, stability. Then she imagined a future alone traveling, freedom, no compromises. Both futures seemed vivid, but both futures scared her. Emily put the phone down without replying. She closed her eyes and felt a storm inside her heart, more violent than the storm on the mountain. And here is where the story becomes even more complicated, because life does not wait for us to decide. Life keeps moving, pushing us forward, sometimes faster than we are ready for. The next week, Emily's company announced that she had been chosen for an important project in London. It would require her to move abroad for 6 months. The opportunity was exciting: new city, new people, new experiences, but it also created a new question. Should she start something serious with Daniel, or should she leave everything behind and go alone to London? The choice suddenly felt urgent. If she said yes to London, she would be choosing freedom and independence. If she said yes to Daniel, she might be choosing stability and partnership. But could she choose both? Emily sat in her apartment that night, staring at the email about the London project. She thought about Sarah's marriage, David's independence, her mother's patience, Michael's divorce, Jessica's bold decision, Mark's quiet support, and Daniel's serious question. All of these voices swirled inside her head like a storm. She whispered to herself, "What if I make the wrong choice? What if I regret it for the rest of my life?" Her chest felt heavy, her eyes filled with tears. She realized that this was not just a simple question of marriage or single life. It was a question of identity, purpose, and the meaning of happiness. And so, the story of Emily is reaching a point of tension. She must soon decide. Will she take the chance to live abroad, or will she build something serious with Daniel? Now, I want to ask you, if you were Emily, what would you do? Would you take the opportunity to move to London, or would you stay and explore a relationship with Daniel? Share your answer in the comments. In the next part, we will see how Emily makes her decision and how that decision changes her life forever. The morning after Emily received the email about the London project, she sat at her kitchen table with a bowl of cereal. She looked at the spoon in her hand and whispered, "How can something as simple as breakfast feel so complicated?" She laughed at herself. But the truth was, her mind was full of heavy questions. Just then, her phone rang. It was her best friend, Lisa, who always had a way of making her laugh. Lisa said, "Emily, you will not believe what happened this morning. I tried to make pancakes, but I used salt instead of sugar. My boyfriend ate one bite, and his face looked like he was chewing the ocean." Emily burst out laughing. "Lisa, you're terrible in the kitchen. That's why you should never leave me in charge of food when you invite me over." For a few minutes, Emily forgot her stress. She enjoyed laughing, remembering that life could still feel light. Humor had a way of clearing the heavy clouds in her mind. But when Lisa asked, "So, how's Daniel? And what's new at work?" the heavy clouds returned immediately. Emily hesitated before answering. "Work gave me an offer to go to London for 6 months. It's a huge opportunity, but Daniel wants something serious, and I don't know what to do." Lisa stayed quiet for a second, then said, "That's a real movie plot. Emily, career versus love, independence versus stability. You're living the drama." She giggled and added, "But hey, at least you don't have to eat salty pancakes." That line made Emily laugh again, but it also reminded her that she needed to make a decision soon. Later that week, Emily met Daniel for coffee. She decided to tell him about the London project. As soon as she mentioned it, Daniel's eyes widened. He asked, So, does this mean you're leaving? Emily tried to explain. It's only 6 months. It's an amazing career opportunity. I don't want to lose you. But I also don't want to lose this chance. Daniel took a deep breath. I understand your ambition, Emily, but I'm looking for someone who wants to build a life together here, not someone who might fly away. His words hit her like a sudden cold wind. She sipped her coffee, trying to stay calm, but inside she felt torn. She admired Daniel's honesty, but she also felt the walls closing in. After they said goodbye, Emily wandered into a bookstore nearby. Sometimes, being surrounded by shelves of stories helped her think. She picked up a book about traveling alone, and the cover had a bold title, Freedom is the Greatest Adventure. She smiled at the coincidence. Then, right next to it, she noticed another book, The Joy of Building a Family. She held both books in her hands, one in each palm, and whispered, My life is exactly like this. 2 books, 2 directions. She laughed softly and put them back. But the image stayed in her mind. The following evening, she joined a small dinner party at Mark's apartment. Mark, the quiet colleague who had helped her on the hiking trip, was actually a great cook. He made pasta, and when he brought it to the table, everyone cheered. Emily teased him. Mark, I didn't know you could cook. Are you secretly married? Mark laughed. No, just a lot of YouTube tutorials. The group laughed, and the evening was filled with light jokes and funny stories. At one point, someone spilled water on the table, and everyone scrambled with napkins, laughing at the chaos. Emily felt her stress melting away for a while. The dinner reminded her that not everything in life had to be dramatic. There could be joy in simple, funny, everyday moments. Still, as the evening ended, she couldn't stop thinking about the decision ahead. The next morning, Emily went jogging in the park. As she ran, she noticed a man teaching his dog to roll over. The dog refused, lying on the grass stubbornly, and the man said, Come on, buddy, you can do it. Emily laughed out loud as she passed. The scene was so ordinary, but it reminded her of something important. Life is not always about big, serious choices. Sometimes happiness is found in small, silly moments, but the big choice still waited. That evening, Emily sat down with her journal again. She drew 2 columns. On one side, London. On the other side, Danielle. Under London, she wrote new experiences, career growth, independence, adventure. Under Daniel, she wrote stability, partnership, potential family, love. As she looked at the list, she realized something surprising. Both sides represented love in different ways. London meant love for herself, for her dreams and independence. Daniel meant love for another person, for partnership and shared life. Which kind of love was stronger inside her heart? Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was her mother. Emily, I heard about the London project from your father. Congratulations. That's amazing. But how do you feel? Emily sighed. I feel confused. I don't want to hurt Daniel, but I also don't want to lose this chance. Her mother spoke gently. Sweetheart, life is not always about choosing between right and wrong. Sometimes it's about choosing between 2 good things. What matters is, which choice feels more true to you? Emily closed her eyes. She could feel tears behind her eyelids. Her mother's words were soft, but they carried weight. Which choice feels more true to me? That night, Emily had a dream. She was standing at an airport. On one side, Daniel was waiting with flowers, smiling, his hands stretched out. On the other side, a plane was boarding passengers, its door wide open. A voice on the speaker said, "Last call for London." Emily looked back and forth, unable to move. Then suddenly, the dream turned absurd. The plane turned into a giant pancake, and Daniel's flowers turned into a bouquet of spaghetti. Emily woke up laughing at the ridiculous image. "Oh my God," she whispered, holding her stomach. "My brain is crazy." But even in her dream, the core question remained. Daniel or London, stability or adventure, marriage or independence. And so, Emily's story grows more complicated, but also more real. She stands at a crossroad with no easy answer. She can laugh, she can cry, she can write lists, but in the end, she must step forward. Now, imagine yourself in Emily's place. Imagine receiving that email about London while someone like Daniel is asking for commitment. Which path would you choose? Would you chase the adventure? Or would you build a home? In the next part, we will see how Emily makes a decision that will shape her life in unexpected ways, and we will discover how sometimes the answer to our questions is not what we expect at all. Emily woke up on Monday with a sense of pressure heavier than usual. The London project required her decision by the end of the week. She sat at her desk with her laptop open, staring at the email again. The subject line read, "Final confirmation needed." It felt like the words were staring back at her, demanding an answer. At work, she tried to concentrate on her design projects, but her mind kept drifting. During a meeting, her manager said, "Emily, this London project could open doors for you. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Everyone in the room nodded. Emily smiled politely, but inside, her stomach twisted. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Yes, but what if choosing it meant closing another door forever? That evening, she met Daniel again. They went for a quiet walk near the river. The lights reflected beautifully on the water. But Emily felt restless. Finally, she took a deep breath and said, "Daniel, I need to tell you the truth. I'm seriously considering going to London." Daniel stopped walking. His face was calm, but his eyes were searching hers. "So, you're leaving. It's only for 6 months," she explained quickly. "It doesn't mean I don't care about you. I don't want to lose this chance." Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he said softly, "Emily, I admire your ambition, but I can't wait around, wondering if you'll choose me after. I want someone who knows they want to be with me now." Her chest tightened. She wanted to argue, to explain, to make him understand, but deep down, she knew he was speaking his truth. The silence between them grew heavy. She finally whispered, "I'm not ready to choose between you and myself." Daniel gave a small, sad smile. "Then maybe the choice has already been made." They stood there for another moment, the sound of the river filling the space between them. Then Daniel gently touched her hand, let it go, and walked away. Emily stood frozen. Tears filled her eyes, blurring the city lights. She felt like the ground beneath her had shifted. The next few days were a blur. She worked during the day, but at night she felt empty. She missed Daniel's presence, his steady voice, his serious eyes. At the same time, she felt a spark of excitement whenever she thought about London. Two emotions collided inside her, grief and anticipation. One night, She called Lisa to vent. I feel like I'm being torn in half. Part of me is heartbroken about Daniel. The other part of me is thrilled about London. How can both feelings exist at the same time? Lisa, always practical, said, because you're human. Emily, we're messy. We want love and we want freedom. Sometimes we can't have both at once. Then she added with a laugh, but at least you didn't burn pancakes this week, right? Emily smiled through her tears. Humor was a small comfort, but it helped. Later that night, she opened her journal again. She wrote, maybe the hardest part of growing up is realizing that every choice has a cost. You don't get everything. You choose one path, and you let go of another. She closed the notebook and looked around her apartment. For the first time, she noticed how temporary everything felt. The books, the furniture, even the photos on the wall. Maybe she was already ready for change, but she had been afraid to admit it. Friday arrived. The final day. She sat in front of her laptop with trembling fingers. Her heart was racing, her palms sweaty. She read the email one last time. Please confirm your participation in the London project by 5. 0 p.m. today? The clock ticked. 4:30 p.m. Emily still hadn't typed a single word. She thought about Daniel's face, the sadness in his eyes. She thought about Sarah's happy marriage, about David's adventurous independence, about Jessica's bold choice, about her mother's advice, about Michael's lessons from divorce, about Mark's quiet support. All of their voices echoed in her head like a chorus. Finally, at 4:55 p.m., she closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to type. Dear Manager, I am confirming my participation in the London project. Thank you for this opportunity. She hit send. The moment was quiet. No dramatic music. No flashing lights. Just a simple click. But Emily knew her life had just changed. After sending the email, she leaned back in her chair and let out a shaky laugh. Well, I guess that's it, she whispered. She felt both terrified and relieved. That weekend, she began preparing. She packed some clothes into a suitcase, bought a new journal, and even practiced saying cheers in a British accent, laughing at herself in the mirror. At the grocery store, she bumped into Mark. He noticed her suitcase tag sticking out of her bag and asked, "Travelling somewhere?" Emily smiled. "Yes, London." For 6 months, Mark raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Wow, that's amazing. I'm happy for you." Something about his warm tone comforted her. For the first time since Daniel walked away, she didn't feel completely alone. As the day of her flight approached, Emily's emotions mixed like colours on a canvas. Sadness, excitement, fear, and hope. She thought again of her dream with the plane and the flowers. Except now, she wasn't standing still. She was boarding the plane. On the night before her flight, she stood by the window, looking at the city one last time. She whispered, "Goodbye, New York. Hello, London." But deep in her heart, another whisper echoed, "And goodbye, Daniel." It wasn't the ending she had imagined, but it was the beginning of something new. And this is where Emily's journey takes a powerful turn. She chose independence. But what will she find in London? Will she discover new love, or will she feel the emptiness of leaving Daniel behind? Now, let me ask you, if you were in Emily's shoes, would you have sent that email? Or would you have stayed and chosen Daniel? Share your thoughts in the comments. In the next part, we will follow Emily as she steps into her new life in London, and we will see how the challenges and surprises of a new country shape her heart and her future. The plane touched down in London on a grey morning. The clouds hung low, and the air smelled different, fresh but damp, carrying the scent of rain. As Emily walked through Heathrow Airport, pulling her suitcase behind her, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervous energy. She whispered to herself, "This is it, my new chapter." Her company had arranged a small flat for her in South London. The building was old but charming, with brick walls and tall windows. When she entered the flat, she noticed how quiet it was. Too quiet. Back in New York, the streets outside her apartment were always noisy, filled with honking horns and voices. Here, only the soft patter of rain filled the air. For a moment, she felt the loneliness press against her chest. To fight the silence, Emily unpacked her things. She placed her books on a shelf, her photos on the desk, and her journal by the bed. She lit a small candle and whispered, "This is home now, at least for a while." The next day, she started work at the London office. The people were friendly, but their accents made her listen carefully. During her first meeting, a manager said, "All right then, let's crack on." Emily smiled politely, but had no idea what crack on meant. Later, she quietly asked a colleague, "What does that phrase mean?" He laughed gently and explained, "It just means, let's get started." Emily laughed too. "Oh, I see. American English and British English are like cousins, similar, but different." Her colleague nodded. "Exactly. You'll get used to it." That small moment made Emily realize she was not only beginning a new job, but also learning a new rhythm of life, a new language flavor. In the evenings, Emily explored the city. She walked along the River Thames, visited the Tower Bridge, and got lost in the narrow streets of Covent Garden. She enjoyed the history around her, the old buildings standing proudly beside modern glass towers. But every time she saw couples walking together, holding hands, a wave of memory hit her. She thought of Daniel, his serious eyes, his quiet strength, the night he let go of her hand by the river in New York. The memory stung, but she reminded herself, this was my choice. One Saturday, Emily decided to visit a famous London market. The place was alive with colours and sounds, vendors shouting, music playing, people laughing. She tried fish and chips wrapped in paper, and the taste was so salty and crunchy that she smiled wide. "Okay, this is much better than Lisa's salty pancakes," she whispered, laughing to herself. At one stall, an older woman selling tea noticed Emily's American accent. "First time in London, love?" she asked kindly. "Yes," Emily replied. "I just moved here for work." The woman smiled. "London will challenge you, but it will also change you. Just keep your heart open." Emily thanked her, feeling as if those words were not just casual, but almost prophetic. At work, things grew more demanding. The London project required late nights and creative energy. Emily pushed herself, sometimes staying in the office until midnight. The challenge made her stronger, but it also made her tired. One evening, walking home through the rain, she wondered if Daniel was also tired in New York, or if he was already moving on. The thought filled her with both sadness and curiosity. One day, during lunch, her colleague Mark, not the Mark from New York, but a different one, cracked a joke about how British people stand in queues for everything. Emily laughed so hard she nearly spilled her tea. These small, funny moments helped her feel less like a stranger and more like part of the team. Still, the question of love lingered. She noticed couples in the office planning weekend trips together, and it stirred something inside her. She wondered, will I ever feel that connection again, or did I lose it when I walked away from Daniel? One Sunday, she took a train to Brighton, a seaside town. The ocean waves crashed against the shore, and the salty air filled her lungs. Emily sat on the pebbled beach. Writing in her journal, she wrote, "Maybe marriage and single life are not opposites. Maybe they are both parts of us, waiting for different seasons. Right now, I am in the season of independence, but maybe one day I will enter the season of love again." As she closed the journal, a child ran past her, laughing, holding a balloon. His parents followed close behind, smiling and calling his name. Emily felt a pang in her chest. The image of family life was still beautiful to her, but instead of sadness, she felt something new, patience. She told herself, it doesn't have to be now. It doesn't have to be never. It just has to be right when it comes. Back in her flat that evening, she cooked pasta and accidentally spilled sauce all over the counter. She laughed at the mess, alone in the kitchen, with red sauce everywhere. She thought, maybe being single has its own comedy show. She imagined Daniel shaking his head, teasing her about her clumsiness. The thought made her laugh and ache at the same time. As the weeks in London turned into months, Emily slowly grew more comfortable. She made new friends, learned to say cheers naturally, and even started enjoying tea breaks. She found joy in little discoveries, like how British people apologize even when someone bumps into them, or how the weather changed 3 times in 1 hour. But late at night, when the city was quiet, she still wondered, did I choose the right path? And this is where Emily's journey reaches another layer of complexity. She has chosen independence, and she is living it fully. But the shadow of love still follows her. The question now is, will London give her the clarity she needs? Or will it remind her of what she left behind? Now let me ask you, if you moved to a new country for work, would you feel excited, or would you feel lonely, or maybe both? Share your thoughts in the comments. In the next part, Emily will face unexpected encounters in London, moments that will challenge her heart, test her choices, and maybe even surprise her with something she never imagined. London had started to feel familiar to Emily. She knew which corner shop sold the best croissants, which bus arrived fastest at her office, and which park bench was perfect for reading after work. Life had rhythm now, but rhythm was not the same as peace. One evening, after a long day, she went to a small cafe near her flat. The place was cozy, with wooden tables and warm lights. Emily sat by the window, sipping tea, when a voice suddenly called her name. Emily! She looked up, startled. Standing there was a tall man with dark hair, holding a laptop bag. His eyes were sharp, but his smile was friendly. I'm sorry, I think we met at the conference last month. Didn't we? The tech talk. Emily blinked, trying to remember. Then she recognized him. His name was James. He had asked a question during her presentation, something clever that made her pause and smile. She hadn't thought about him since, but now here he was. Yes, she said, smiling politely. James, right. You asked about market trends. He laughed. Exactly. May I join you? And just like that, the empty evening turned into conversation. They talked about London, about work, about travel. James had a quick wit, and sometimes he made fun of himself in a way that made Emily laugh until her stomach hurt. She found it refreshing light, easy, without the weight of old memories. But as she walked home later that night, the shadow of Daniel returned. She asked herself silently, if I enjoy talking to James, does that mean I am forgetting Daniel? Or does it mean I am finally healing? The following week, James invited her to visit the British Museum. Emily hesitated at first. She wasn't sure she was ready for something that felt like a date. But curiosity won. They wandered through halls filled with ancient statues and faded maps. James explained little details with excitement, like a child discovering treasure. Emily found herself drawn not only to the history, but also to his energy. He was so alive, so present. At one point, while looking at a sculpture, James said, "Funny, isn't it? People centuries ago also worried about love, family, and the meaning of life. It seems we're not so different." Emily's heart tightened. His words touched something deep inside her. She thought about her own struggles, her choice to leave Daniel, her nights of loneliness. Suddenly, the museum felt more than historical, it felt personal. Later, they walked outside, and rain began to fall lightly. James opened his umbrella, and without thinking, Emily stepped under it with him. For a moment, their shoulders brushed, and she felt warmth. But then, almost instinctively, she pulled away slightly. The image of Daniel holding her hand on that rainy night in New York flashed in her mind. James noticed her silence. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. "Yes," Emily said quickly, just thinking. The days that followed were confusing. Emily found herself smiling when James sent her messages. But she also found herself staring at old photos of Daniel. It was as if her heart was walking on two different roads at once. One Friday evening, James invited her to a small comedy club. The place was packed with laughter, people clapping and shouting at the stage. Emily hadn't laughed so freely in months. When the comedian joked about British weather 4 seasons in one day, she nearly cried from laughing. At the end of the night, as they walked home, James turned to her and said, "Emily, you're different from most people I meet here. You're brave. You came to London alone, started a new life. I admire that." Emily looked at him, unsure how to respond. His sincerity was disarming. She felt the pull of something new, but also the weight of something unfinished. That night, lying in bed, Emily wrote in her journal, "Is it possible to care about 2 worlds at once? One past, one present?" Her pen hesitated on the page. She realized she was not only writing about Daniel and James, but also about marriage and single life, about love and independence. Could these things exist together? Or must she always choose one? The next day, something unexpected happened. Emily received an email from Daniel. The subject line was simple. "Hi." Her hands shook as she clicked it open. The message was short. He wrote that he hoped she was doing well, that he had seen something in New York that reminded him of her, and that he wondered how London was treating her. Emily stared at the screen for a long time. Her heart raced. The past was not gone. It was alive, knocking gently at her door. She didn't reply immediately. Instead, she closed the laptop and walked outside into the London air. The streets were noisy. people rushing past, umbrellas opening and closing in the drizzle. She thought, why now? Why, when I am finally finding laughter again? Does the past come back? Her mind was a storm, full of questions with no answers. Would she write back to Daniel? Would she tell James about her confusion? Or would she keep both worlds separate, pretending she could manage them? And perhaps the deeper question was this: was Emily truly searching for love, or was she searching for herself? These thoughts circled in her head like the London eye turning slowly against the sky. She realized that her journey was no longer only about choosing marriage or single life. It was about facing the truth of her own heart. Now let me ask you, if you were in Emily's position, would you answer Daniel's email? Or would you let the past stay in the past? In the next part, Emily will have to make decisions that bring her face to face with the heart of the story. Choices will no longer be abstract ideas. They will be real, immediate, and impossible to ignore. Emily sat at her desk staring at the glowing screen. The email from Daniel was still open, its few simple lines echoing louder than paragraphs ever could. Hi, I hope you're doing well. I saw something in New York that reminded me of you. How is London? It was ordinary, too ordinary, but beneath those words, Emily felt a weight, an invitation, perhaps even a plea. She imagined him typing the message, hesitating, deleting, rewriting. That thought alone made her heart tremble. For 2 nights she didn't answer. She carried her phone everywhere, rereading the email at random moments. On the bus, in the grocery store, even in bed at midnight. Each time she whispered to herself, "Don't reply, move on." Yet silence felt impossible. On the 3rd evening, she sat down with a cup of tea and whispered, just a short reply, nothing serious. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then typed, "Hi Daniel. London is different but good. I've been learning new things about myself here. I hope New York is treating you well." She read it 10 times, then pressed send. Her heart pounded as if she had jumped into cold water. Afterward, she felt both relief and fear. Relief, because she had released the pressure. Fear, because she knew doors once closed could open again. The next morning, she received his reply. Faster than she expected, he wrote, "I miss talking to you. I've been thinking about our long walks, our talks about the future. Are you happy there?" Emily's chest tightened. The question was dangerous. Are you happy there? She wanted to scream. Yes, no, sometimes, I don't know. That evening, she met James for dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant. He was cheerful, telling a story about his co-worker accidentally sending an email to the entire company. Emily laughed, but her mind drifted. The words of Daniel's email pulsed at the back of her thoughts. "Emily," James said suddenly, looking at her carefully, "you seem distracted tonight. Is something wrong?" She froze. For a second, she imagined telling him everything. The emails, the memories, the storm inside her. But instead she smiled and shook her head, just tired. I think James didn't push. Instead, he raised his glass to better days ahead. They clinked glasses, but guilt washed over Emily, sitting across from a man who was opening his world to her. She was hiding a secret. Days turned into weeks. Emily's exchanges with Daniel grew longer. They wrote about little things, the weather, books they were reading, music, but hidden between the lines were questions unspoken. Could they find each other again? Did they want to? At the same time, Her moments with James grew warmer. They explored Camden Market, laughing at strange antiques. They took long walks along the Thames, sharing stories about their childhoods. One night, James played guitar for her, and she realized she hadn't felt such simple joy in years. But every time James touched her hand, she felt a flash of Daniel. And every time Daniel's name appeared in her inbox, she thought of James's laugh. Her heart was a battlefield. One Saturday, Emily sat in Hyde Park alone. Children played nearby. Couples lay on the grass. The air was filled with laughter. She thought, this is what I want: peace, belonging, joy. But how could she reach it when she was standing in two worlds? Suddenly her phone buzzed. A new message from Daniel. I might come to London for work next month. Maybe we could meet. Just for coffee. No pressure. Emily's breath caught. Meeting him face to face again. The idea thrilled her and terrified her in equal measure. That night she couldn't sleep. She replayed old memories like a movie. Daniel holding her hand at the subway. Daniel whispering promises late at night. Daniel's anger when she said she wanted freedom. And now, Daniel's words on the screen. Maybe we could meet. She sat up in bed, whispering into the dark. What do you want? Emily, what do you truly want? The next day, James invited her to his friend's birthday party. The room was filled with music, dancing, and warmth. James introduced her to everyone with pride. This is Emily, the smartest person I know, he said. And people laughed. Emily felt both joy and pain. Joy because James valued her. Pain because she wasn't giving him all of herself. When he held her hand that night, she let him, but her heart whispered Daniel's name. Later, walking home under the London streetlights, James stopped suddenly. Emily, he said softly, I like you more than a friend. I feel like we could build something real. Her heart raced. This was the moment she had known would come. A choice, or at least the beginning of one. But Emily stayed silent. She looked into James's eyes, kind and steady, and she thought of Daniel's email, waiting unanswered in her inbox. That silence stretched long, heavy. Finally, James nodded slowly. You don't have to answer now. Just think about it. Emily nodded, tears threatening. Thank you, she whispered. That night she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Two men, two worlds, marriage and commitment on one side, independence and new beginnings on the other. But maybe it wasn't only about them. Maybe it was about who she wanted to be. The choice would not wait much longer. Daniel was coming to London. James was opening his heart. And Emily was standing at the edge of something bigger than either man. The truth of her own life. So let me ask you, if you were Emily, would you meet Daniel when he arrives in London? Or would you turn toward James and the life you've begun to build here? In the next part, Emily will face a turning point that cannot be delayed where decisions are made. Hearts are tested, and the story moves closer to its answer. The day Daniel arrived in London was grey, with clouds hanging low over the city like a secret waiting to be revealed. Emily checked her phone nervously as she walked through the bustling streets. A simple message blinked at her. Landed. Coffee tomorrow. Her stomach twisted. She had imagined this moment for weeks. But now that it was real, she felt both excitement and dread. The city she had begun to call home suddenly felt smaller, as if the streets themselves were pushing her toward a decision she wasn't ready to make. That evening, she sat with James at his apartment. He had cooked pasta for them. Humming to himself as he poured wine, Emily watched him, noticing how comfortable he looked in his space, how natural he was in her life now. Yet, under the warmth of his smile, she felt the weight of her secret pressing harder. James twirled his fork and asked, "So, how was your day?" Emily hesitated. She could have told him about Daniel's message. She could have been honest, but instead, she said quietly, "Busy, but fine." James nodded, not pressing further. He leaned back and smiled. "I've been thinking, I want to take you somewhere next weekend. Brighton, just a day trip to the sea. What do you think?" Emily forced a smile. That sounds lovely, but her heart was already racing ahead to tomorrow, to the coffee shop where Daniel would be waiting. The next afternoon, she stood outside a small cafe near King's Cross. Her hands trembled as she pushed the door open. Inside, Daniel was already there, sitting by the window. His familiar profile both comforting and painful. When he turned and their eyes met, time seemed to bend. "Emily," he said softly, standing to greet her. His voice was exactly as she remembered. Deep and warm, carrying echoes of countless nights. She sat down, trying to steady her breathing. "Hi, Daniel." For a moment, they just looked at each other. The silence was full, thick with everything unsaid. Finally, Daniel smiled faintly. "You look happy." "Different, but happy." Emily laughed nervously. "London changes people, I guess." They talked. At first, about small things, work, travel, their books. But soon, deeper questions surfaced. "Do you ever think about us?" Daniel asked suddenly, his eyes searching hers. Emily froze. She wanted to say no, to draw a clear line, but honesty pulled the truth out of her lips. "Yes, sometimes." Daniel leaned closer. "I made mistakes. I pushed too hard. But I haven't stopped thinking that maybe we could try again." Her heart pounded. The room seemed to fade, leaving only his words. "Try again." The possibility both thrilled and terrified her. But then James's laugh echoed in her memory. The guitar, the simple joy of walking with him through London. The contrast was sharp. Daniel represented history, intensity, unfinished promises. James offered warmth, stability, a new chapter. Emily sipped her coffee to hide the storm inside her. "Life here, it's different now. I'm not the same person I was in New York." Daniel's eyes softened. "I can see that, but maybe we could find each other again, in this new place." When they parted, Daniel touched her hand gently, just for a second. It was enough to send electricity through her, to remind her of everything they once had, but it also left her shaken. That evening, James called. "How about dinner tomorrow? I want to show you something." Emily agreed, her voice trembling. She didn't know why she said yes, perhaps because she couldn't bear the thought of losing the balance between two worlds. The next night, James led her to the riverside. Lights sparkled on the water, and the air smelled of rain. He pulled a small notebook from his pocket and handed it to her. "I've been writing songs again," he said, shyly. "You inspired me. And one of them is about us." Emily opened the notebook, her hands shaking. On the page were lyrics about beginnings, about hope, about a woman who brought light into someone's world. Her chest tightened. "James," she whispered. He looked into her eyes, steady and vulnerable. "I don't want to rush you, but I need you to know how I feel." You're not just someone I like, you're someone I could see a future with. Emily's breath caught. Future. The word felt heavy. Final. One man from her past was asking her to rebuild something broken. Another man in her present was offering to build something new. That night, she lay awake again, her mind spinning. Daniel's touch, James's song, two lives pulling at her heart. She whispered into the dark. How do I choose? Days passed, each one heavier than the last. Emily avoided Daniel's messages, telling herself she needed space. Yet his presence in the city was like a shadow following her. At the same time, James grew closer, inviting her into his circle of friends, making her laugh in ways that felt so alive. But the storm inside her only grew. One evening, walking alone along the Thames, she paused to watch the city lights. Couples strolled hand in hand. A busker played a soft tune on a violin. Emily closed her eyes and let the sounds wash over her. She realized then that the choice wasn't simply between Daniel and James. It was between the person she had been and the person she wanted to become. And as she opened her eyes, she knew the moment of decision was coming. She could not walk both roads. So let me ask you if you were Emily, standing there with the river reflecting the lights of London, knowing one man represents your past and another your possible future. Which path would you take? In the next part, Emily will face the confrontation she cannot escape where words are spoken. Truths are revealed, and the heart must decide what the mind cannot. Emily woke up that morning with her heart pounding. The day had arrived. She could no longer postpone the decision that had been hovering over her for months. Daniel's presence in London, James's steady companionship, and her own longing for independence had reached a point where everything collided at once. She sat at her small kitchen table, a cup of tea untouched, and stared at her journal. She wrote, "It's not about choosing love or freedom. It's about choosing who I want to be, the person I want to live with every day." The city outside seemed to pulse with expectation. Rain drizzled lightly against the window, and she could hear the distant hum of traffic. She thought of Daniel, his serious eyes, the weight of promises and the love they had shared. Then she thought of James, his laughter, his music, the warmth that had grown between them in London. Her phone buzzed. It was Daniel. "Can we meet tonight?" Emily took a deep breath. She had decided she would see him, but she would also be honest. No hesitation, no pretending. She needed clarity, both for him and for herself. That evening, she met Daniel at a quiet riverside cafe. He stood as she approached, his expression a mixture of hope and apprehension. She smiled softly, trying to steady her racing heart. "Emily," he said, voice gentle. "I'm glad you agreed to meet." "Danielle," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "We need to talk, really talk." They sat, the river flowing quietly beside them. The sounds of the city faded into the background. For the first time, Emily felt the gravity of this moment. She couldn't run. She couldn't avoid the truth. "I received your email," Daniel began, "and I felt hopeful. I thought maybe we could try again. But now I see you've changed, and I don't want to force anything." Emily nodded, taking a deep breath. "Daniel, I care about you. I always will. But I've grown in ways I couldn't have imagined if I stayed in New York. I've learned about myself here, my independence, my happiness, my ability to stand on my own. I can't go back to what we were." I need to move forward, not backward. Daniel's eyes softened, and he reached across the table, taking her hand. I understand, and I want you to be happy, even if that means I'm not part of your life the way I used to be. Emily felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She squeezed his hand briefly, letting him know she still cared, but then pulled back gently. I have to be honest with James too. He deserves that. Later that night, Emily met James at his apartment. He was strumming his guitar softly, the same tune that had made her smile weeks ago. She took a deep breath. James, she began. There's something I need to tell you. I've been honest with Daniel tonight. I can't go back to New York. I've chosen to live here, in this city, and I want to be present in my life fully. And that means I want to be with you. James's eyes widened slightly, then softened. He put the guitar down and took her hands in his. Emily, are you sure? This is real, because I don't want a half-hearted maybe. I want you. Emily nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I'm sure. I've spent months thinking, feeling, and learning. I've realized what makes me truly happy, and it's not holding on to the past. It's moving forward with someone who's here, who's present, who shares this life with me. James smiled, a mixture of relief and joy. He pulled her into a gentle embrace, and for the first time in months, Emily felt her chest lift, her heart unburdened. The city outside the window seemed brighter, alive with possibility. In the days that followed, Emily settled into a new rhythm. She worked, explored London, laughed with James, and embraced the independence she had fought to claim. The shadow of Daniel remained a tender memory, a lesson in love and loss. But it no longer dictated her choices. She discovered that love and independence were not enemies. They could coexist when built on honesty and mutual respect. She also learned that decisions could be painful, but clarity brought freedom. One morning, Emily and James walked along the Thames, holding hands without fear. Do you ever think about the past? James asked quietly. Emily smiled. Sometimes, but the past taught me who I am. And now, I'm choosing the present with you. James squeezed her hand gently. I'm glad you're here, with me. Really here. Emily looked at the city skyline, the river, and the people passing by. She felt fully alive. She had chosen her path, embraced her independence, and opened her heart to new love. The future was uncertain, as it always would be, but she no longer feared it, because Emily had learned the most important lesson of all. Life doesn't ask you to have everything at once. It asks you to choose, to act, and to live fully in the moment you have. As she leaned her head on James's shoulder, Emily whispered softly, "This feels right, for the first time in a long time." It really does. The city lights shimmered on the water. The evening air was cool and fresh, and Emily felt the full weight of the journey she had taken. From uncertainty, heartbreak, and self-discovery, she had arrived at clarity, happiness, and love. And as she walked forward, hand in hand with James, she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them, not as someone torn between past and present, but as a woman who had chosen her life fully, bravely, and with an open heart. Weeks passed, and Emily's life in London began to feel like a story she was finally writing herself. Each morning she woke up with purpose. Each evening she reflected on her choices, And each moment she spent with James reminded her of the joy that comes from living fully in the present. It wasn't perfect. There were still rainy days when she felt nostalgic for New York, and moments when Daniel's memory surfaced, reminding her of what had been left behind. But now, those memories were gentle lessons rather than burdens. They taught her about love, courage, and self-respect. One Sunday, Emily sat in a small cafe, writing in her journal. She thought about her journey, the difficult decision between staying in New York or moving to London, the emotional conflict between Daniel and James, and the long nights of reflection that had shaped her understanding of herself. She wrote, "Life isn't about avoiding choices, it's about embracing them. And when you choose with honesty and courage, the path becomes clear." As she sipped her tea, she noticed a young couple struggling to communicate in English across the table from her. Emily smiled, remembering how challenging it had been for her at the beginning. She gently offered a tip about ordering, and the couple smiled brightly, thanking her. It reminded her of the power of small, real-life conversations to connect people. Work was still challenging, but Emily felt capable. She led meetings confidently, contributed ideas, and even mentored a few colleagues who were new to the city. She noticed that every time she helped someone, she also strengthened her own English skills. She could feel herself thinking and speaking more naturally, more fluently. One evening, walking home with James, she paused on a bridge overlooking the Thames. The water reflected the city lights, and the air smelled faintly of rain and fresh bread from nearby cafes. James looked at her and said, "Emily, do you ever regret your choice?" She shook her head slowly. "No. At first, I was scared. I worried I would lose Daniel, my past, my comfort. But I've learned that choosing for yourself doesn't mean leaving love behind. It means finding the right place for it. And right now, this feels right." James smiled and squeezed her hand. "I'm glad you're here with me, and I'm glad you chose yourself first. That's what makes this real." Emily realized something important. Independence and love were not opposites. Choosing to grow, explore, and live fully did not mean closing her heart to others. In fact, it made her more capable of loving deeply and meaningfully. She also understood that life's challenges, like the decision between marriage and independence, were not about one correct answer. They were about reflection, courage, and action. Every choice had consequences, but those consequences shaped character and resilience. At home, she opened her journal again and listed lessons she had learned. Self-awareness is powerful. Knowing your desires, limits, and dreams makes decisions clearer. Courage matters. It's scary to choose a new path, but fear is often the companion of growth. Honesty builds trust. Being honest with yourself and others strengthens relationships. Love can evolve. Past relationships teach lessons. Present relationships bring joy. Independence enhances love. Being whole on your own allows you to give fully to others. Emily smiled at the list. Each lesson felt earned, each word a reminder of the journey she had undertaken. She thought of Daniel, sending a quiet wish for him to be happy, knowing their story had shaped her, not defined her. She thought of James, whose laughter, kindness, and patience had helped her step fully into the present. The next day, she led a language workshop for newcomers to London. She created simple, practical exercises for listening and speaking using real-life conversations. idioms, and humor. Watching her students gain confidence reminded her of her own journey, how small moments, repeated and practiced, built fluency and self-assurance. She realized her experience could inspire others, people learning English, people navigating relationships, people trying to find their place in the world. Her story wasn't just about love, it was about life, choice, courage, and growth. One afternoon, Emily and James visited a local market. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow on the streets. Emily laughed as she tasted a fresh pastry, accidentally dropping crumbs on her jacket. James teased her, and they both laughed until their cheeks ached. She realized that happiness was often found in these small, ordinary moments, moments of connection, laughter, and shared experience. As they walked back toward the river, Emily reflected on how far she had come, from uncertainty and heartbreak to clarity and love. She had navigated each challenge with honesty and self-awareness. She had learned to trust herself, to value her independence, and to embrace the future with courage. Emily knew life would continue to bring choices and challenges, but now she felt ready for them. Confident in her ability to act with thoughtfulness and integrity, she understood that love, career, independence, and joy were all parts of a whole life, a life that she had chosen for herself. Leaning her head on James's shoulder, she whispered softly, "I'm glad I made these choices. I feel alive. I feel complete." James kissed her forehead gently. "And I'm glad you're here, all of you strong, kind, and brave." Emily smiled, watching the sun reflect on the Thames. She realized that the greatest lessons weren't just about love or career. They were about living fully, embracing challenges, and growing with courage. And as she held James's hand, she understood that life was a journey of learning, not just arriving. She whispered to herself, "No regrets, only lessons, only life." In that moment, Emily felt the deep, calm certainty of someone who had faced uncertainty, embraced growth, and stepped into a life of love, independence, and joy. She was ready for whatever came next. And as the city lights danced across the water, she knew that life's true beauty was not in perfection, but in courage, choice, and the willingness to embrace each day fully.